Welcome back to the Believe in Jets podcast, a New York Jets podcast on the Believe Podcast Network. My name is Rami Lavi. Bilal Powell, unfortunately, was under the weather this morning, so it'll be me solo talking to you about the Jets game on Sunday in Tennessee. Before we get into that, just for a second, I did want to talk to Bilal about this, but I will talk to him, I guess, on Monday or after the Jets game about this. And I did text a little bit back and forth with him. But regarding the Tua Tagovailoa stuff, because last night was certainly scary for a lot of people and scary for Dolphins fans, but most of all scary for, the health of Tua and his family and the people who love him. So, look, Bilal is someone, and I tried to get someone else on last minute who also has experience with this, who experienced injuries in the NFL that weren't just threatening from a career standpoint or a football standpoint, but could have led to life-threatening and life-altering situations because of the injuries that he had in the league. And that's just the reality of football. That's how it is. And Bilal's a guy who had at times decisions to make when, and he could probably tell you this better than I can. And he will. We'll get him on the pod and we'll talk about it. But, life-altering decisions to come back and play, because he could have just gone off when he had some of the neck injuries and it could change his life forever. He had to trust the doctors. And if the doctors told him he was clear, he was going to come back. And I don't know what that decision looks like for every guy. Now, the last time Tua made this decision to come back, because a lot of the discourse today is the league can't let him play or Tua's never going to play again. There's no way. Mike McDaniel said it best today. And first of all, the discourse it's a lot of noise, if I'm being completely honest, because, it's such an easy topic to jump on. Everyone feels terrible for the guy. Everyone's sick to their stomach watching that happen to him again. We talked about the lost weight and how's that going to affect him. Maybe it makes him better, but he gained the weight because he was less susceptible to injury with more weight added on him. So there's so many layers to this. And to just put out hey, thoughts and prayers for Tua, I'm with you. We all know that. We all agree with that. No one disagrees with that. So that feels like a cheap I'm just getting cheap clicks, using someone else's misfortune and injury to get cheap likes because I'm going to thoughts and prayers and prayer hands and, oh man, my heart goes out to him. Like, if your heart doesn't go out to him, you're just a really shitty person. Like, there's no two ways about this. I think everyone agrees with how we feel about this situation. It's terrible. It's sad. It's tragic. And it's nothing you want to see in a football game. And it's the side of football that sometimes gets ugly, because when we talk so much about player safety, and that's why we're changing the kickoff rule and things like that, we're wearing helmet caps and stuff. And then we see this, rear its ugly head sometimes on a weekly basis. We're reminded that it's a violent sport and it could be a car collision at any time. And, Al Michaels is getting shit for this, but he said it. Like, the irony that in all of this, the guy involved in the play is a guy who knows better than anyone that he essentially lost his life on a football field and had to be resuscitated. Damar Hamlin. I mean, we know the consequences of this game at times, unfortunately. And I think everyone who gets into it knows it, but sometimes when it's in our face and we're reminded of it while we're watching it on national TV as a country on Thursday Night Football, sometimes there's a little chill that goes down our spine and we forget all the time that this could happen at any moment. I'm sure Aaron Rodgers, 40 years old, a little bit less mobile, coming off an Achilles injury, watched that and probably had a little bit of a chill go down his spine. The NFL community as a whole probably felt terrible for him. But remember, Damar Hamlin, if there was anyone who people would have been like, hey, yo, go away. Like, you don't need to play again. And not only that, he basically was a healthy scratch a bunch of times last year because he was not back to the same level. And this year he's now the starting safety, mostly because they lost two safeties in Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. But at the same time, he got back to where he wanted to be. And part of that is wanting to be great at this game. Everyone would understand if he stepped away. So 2 years ago, when the concussions happened 3 times in one season and Tua sat out the rest of the season, although the last one took place, I think, week 16 or something like that. So he only sat out a week or two to end the season, and Skylar Thompson ends up starting the playoff game. at that point, Tua made the decision, I'm coming back in the league. Now, at that point, he also hadn't gotten his fifth-year option yet. So for Tua, the decision at that point was to come back and play, and maybe something that factored into it. Now, no one's going to sneeze at $30 million, but that's what he had made in the league to that point over his first 4 years. He had only made but $30 million. That's all he got. So maybe for him at that point, he was like, I think I could be a great quarterback in the NFL. For my career to end like this before I even got my big first real contract would be such a shame. Then he gets $23 million for that year, the fifth-year option. And of course, this past July, he signs the massive extension. Now, Boomer Esiason was talking on the WFAN morning show this morning, talking about how, there's probably different ways where the contract would be void if he does retire because of another injury. She said, I'm sure there's language in there to protect the Dolphins that they wouldn't have to pay all this money because of his injury history. I'm sure all that's in there. I'm sure Boomer's right. But the bottom line is he signed a contract 3 months ago that had $167 million guaranteed in that. Now, it could be the competitor, and this is what I wanted to ask Bilal. Bilal's not someone who ever signed a $167 million guaranteed contract, but the competitor in the NFL and in the pro athlete that we can't, as non-pro athletes, cannot fathom and cannot comprehend, the competitor and the competitive spirit where at some point the money doesn't even matter. I don't know if that's what went through Tua's head last time, and maybe it was just, I want to play again because I know I'm capable of being great. And that's a whole other story because when you watch him, it's like, wow, there are plays that he is capable of being great. And when it's in the rhythm and when he's stepping up in the pocket and looking off DBs and then throwing the other, like sometimes he looks incredible. And then other times he looks like the worst quarterback. Like when he's trying to throw it out of bounds and gets picked off, he looks like Will Levis. Like the contrast between the two Tuas that we see. And then this is just moronic. I mean, as much as I feel for him, slide with your feet. Your history, right? He leaned with his head. Like, I'm not blaming him for this, but I'm just saying sometimes you have to protect yourself. And that's something that, I'm sure he's been told 1,000 times and he has to understand at this point. But, regardless, I don't know what goes through his mind to get back to the point. I don't know if part of the decision for Tua was, I can be great, so let me go out there and prove how great I can be. Or if part of it was, hey, I made this money and this is a nice money that I made, but I could set my family up for life if I could just have another couple great years, get the fifth-year option, get the big extension, the $167 million guaranteed. If I can do that, there's a difference between being rich and setting my family up and my kids and my grandkids up for life. And I don't know if that was the motivation to keep playing despite the traumatic head injuries. Because, like I spoke to my father this morning, you hear stories of guys in their 30s and 40s, not old at all. Tua's my age. He's 26. You hear stories of guys in their 30s and 40s who are contemplating taking their own lives because they can't deal with the headaches. They can't deal with the noise in their head. They can't deal with the trauma, with the anxiety. Bilal's talked about his mental health post-playing career, and I'm sure the hits and the neck injuries have something to do with that. And again, I don't want to speak for him. I'm not putting words in his mouth, but the conversation around Tua goes from a football conversation to a human being and a life conversation very quickly. And so for this kid, for this human being, for this family, he has to make the decision. And so while it's not about the money when it comes to being a super competitive athlete, at some point, maybe you look at the $167 million and you say, hey, I use my platform to do good. I've got this huge platform now. I could use the shield to help other players learn on how to protect themselves. Like, unfortunately, in that moment, I could have protected myself and I didn't. Don't get to the point where you come back to the league and then in 10 years, you're mad at the NFL that they didn't protect you better. And I don't think the league is going to hold him out. That's a narrative I've seen out there today. Oh, the league can't let him play again. This is going to be a decision for Tua, his family, his loved ones. This is not about the NFL. This is not about the shield. The NFL doesn't care. They're about the money. They've been around long before Tua ever showed up. They'll be around long after Tua ever leaves. The only thing that could look terrible for the league is if he comes back and gets hurt again. But the league survives so many things. They'll survive that too. They survived a whole movie called Concussion, literally attacking the league. They've survived multiple lawsuits. The NFL is such a powerhouse. I don't even think it's on their conscience to think, oh, well, how does this look for us if Tua gets hurt again? They'll cross that bridge when they get there. They'll shove it under the rug. They'll make it disappear if they have to. They'll pay him off. That's, the league is when it comes down to it, the NFL is just a dark, dirty place. But it rears its ugly head once in a while. We love it. We love football. I'm not telling you not to watch. I watch every Sunday. I watch every Thursday. If you throw a game on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, I'll watch those too. I love the NFL. Don't get me wrong. But we know what it is. And I think nights like last night remind you of what it is. And that's okay. That's just what the league is. That's what these players sign up for. They get paid, like I said, life-changing, life-altering money for them and their family and their generations to come. So Tua, I don't know if this changes his contract or if this new contract changes his mind at all and how much of it will be paid out. But this time does feel different than the past times. I don't know if we see him again. Mike McDaniel already talked about they're going to get another quarterback in here. Skylar Thompson's the starter for now. But if it's Ryan Tannehill, people are putting Tom Brady in a Dolphins uniform. I don't buy that. My point is they're going to move forward, at least for the next couple of weeks, as if they don't have Tua. And then we'll see what happens. And by the way, how great is Mike McDaniel? Whether it's the kiss on the head, which I think is a little over the top and funny, Mike McDaniel stuff, I do love it. But he actually loves his players. And when he talked today, as funny and quirky as he can be at sometimes, and a lot of it's a show, he could also be serious and talk about a guy and his family. And you're the quarterback of your family right now. You need to worry about that. Mike McDaniel, sometimes you don't need to win a ton of games because he's made the playoffs a couple times. But they haven't done anything in the playoffs. And he's now 1-11. I saw this going around. Mike McDaniel is 1-11 as the Dolphins head coach against winning teams. You could say that the Dolphins, all their success the last couple of years with Mike McDaniels has been completely fabricated. And when this team needs to win most, they fold. They always lose to Josh Allen. They always lose in the cold weather. They always lose in the playoffs. On night games at home, they can't win either because they don't have the advantage of the sun and the shadows on the other side of the field. They don't have that advantage anymore. You can say all those things about Mike McDaniel as a knock on him. When you watch Mike McDaniel, you don't need to be convinced that he's a great head coach. You're not in year 4 wondering, can he do it? Is his scheme good enough? I don't know. Is he a leader of men? Do the guys like him? Do the guys trust him? They gave him the extension already, Mike McDaniel, because it's so clear and obvious that he's a great head coach and he should be there for a long time. Sometimes when you know, like, I'm not saying the Jets can't win with Robert Saleh, but we would know by now if he was a great head coach despite everything that's happened. Look at everything Mike McDaniel's had to deal with from the Tua stuff a couple of years ago to now. Everything that has gone on in Miami. Tyreek Hill and the situations there. And Mike McDaniel always passes with flying colors, despite the playoff record, despite the record against great teams, despite the record in primetime games and cold games against the Bills. Doesn't matter to me. You know Mike McDaniel is a great head coach. If Robert Saleh was a great head coach, we know it by now. He's not. Can they win despite of that? Can they win in spite of Robert Saleh? The Jets, yes, absolutely. We've seen Aaron Rodgers win with Mike McCarthy. I don't think Mike McCarthy's a great head coach. I think he's good enough. Robert Saleh could be good enough. He's never going to be a great head coach. We would know by now if he was. We know Mike McDaniel is a great head coach. There's a difference there. By the way, you talk about the love and bringing someone in, and because Tua talked about it so much, you invest in me. You make me feel like I'm loved. You make me feel like I can do this. You give me the confidence. That's what he talked about when he talked about Mike McDaniel, especially versus Brian Flores earlier this season. Could you imagine in this offense, it's so easy to run. It's just one read, 2 reads, and some plays, Tua looks terrible because when the first couple reads are not there, he looks like Zach Wilson. But can you imagine Zach Wilson in this offense? He has the gun to sling it downfield to Tyreek and Waddle. He could probably at least follow very basic instructions. If he's given the confidence that Mike McDaniel can give to a young quarterback, he could probably follow the basic instructions to run this simple 1 read, 2 read offense that they run. That's very simple to run. And he's got the arm. Will he make some mistakes that look horrendous still? Yeah. But can you imagine if the Dolphins went and got Zach Wilson right off of the Denver Broncos practice squad and called him up and Mike McDaniel turned him into basically what Tua was for them? Wouldn't that be the ultimate gut punch for Jet fans? I think it could happen. I don't think Zach Wilson is a good quarterback at all. I don't think he could be successful anywhere in the league. But if there's one place it could work for him, it would be with Mike McDaniel and that head coach, because like I just said, he's a great head coach and he can make it work. And that would be so awful for Jet fans. That would be hard to watch. So, to the football and the Jets side of it. So, a couple of things, couple of storylines before we get to the game. Number one, the Aaron Rodgers comments. Aaron Rodgers said, and I don't remember if it was I think it was to the media, not to McAfee. And I watched him with McAfee. It was excellent. I mentioned that when I talked with Willie Colon and Bilal in the previous episode. He said to the media, he said, look, it's one game. If you're a Jets fan, if you want to hop off the bandwagon because we got blown out in one game, go ahead. But don't come back on. Now, there's two sides to this. Jets fans, you can do whatever you want. You're sports fans. That's how it works. But I love what Rodgers said. He has to keep it even keeled, even if this season ends up going terribly. After week one to jump off the bandwagon, what are you, crazy? He has to go back to that locker room and show that he's a leader and show that, yes, it's just 1 week. I know the defense will be better. I know our defensive line is going to get home. I know we'll be able to stop the run. I know the offensive line in pass protection was really good. In run protection, they'll be better. I know other guys will step up outside of Garrett Wilson on the receiving side of the ball. I know all that. It's one game. It's one loss. Don't get too high from the highs. Don't get too low from the lows. If you're a Jets fan, because you're so conditioned and you're so mentally scarred from everything the Jets have put us through, and trust me, I know it. I believe it. It's why I have fantasies and theories about Zach Wilson going and being great somewhere else with Mike McDaniel in our own division. You know why? Because of everything the Jets have put me through. That's the trauma that I have as being a Jet fan. So I understand it. But guess what? Aaron Rodgers is here telling you, don't think like that. This is new. This is new territory. Everything we've seen, and this is what I talk about all the time with the Jets, when they benched the guys, when they were scared to play them in preseason, it's running from the same old Jets. It's fear of their history. Aaron Rodgers is saying, no, get rid of that. There shouldn't be a fear. If you want to jump off the bandwagon, that's same old Jets to jump off after 1 week. This is something new. We're not going to be the same old Jets. Right now, this week, you could jump off if you want. But we're moving forward. This year is different. I'm here now. I'm the quarterback now. I run the show. I'm Aaron Rodgers, and I'm better than anything you've ever had here. Yes, better than Joe Namath, better than any quarterback who's ever played in the history of the Jets franchise. And because of that, we are going to be better. And so if you want to jump off because 1 week went poorly, go ahead. But don't come crawling back when we're good. And this is what I told Jets fans before the season. Ride it. Go up and with the downs. Like, don't get too high with the highs. Don't get too low with the lows. But don't set yourself up for failure by overhyping them before the season starts and then being frustrated. Or don't let the frustration or the anticipation of a bad thing happening, don't allow that to ruin the good times. We haven't had good times yet. Hopefully it starts Sunday in Tennessee. Another negative for the Jets is the Hassan Reddick situation. Now there are rumors from ESPN that the Jets basically have no choice. NFL executives assume that they're just going to trade him because they have no choice. He still hasn't showed up. Now, I think it did tilt a little bit towards Reddick this week because the Jets defense played so poorly. So maybe the Jets wait a little bit longer and they say, you know what, let's just wait. There's that 10-day break after the Pats game. Let's just give it until then. Let's just see. He's going to forfeit 3 game checks by then. And for 2-1, maybe he comes crawling back. He knows that we have his rights for next year. He's signed for a contract this year. So if he doesn't come back by then, maybe that's what the Jets are hoping for. And I expect it will be resolved by Thursday or Friday after the Pats game. If the Jets are 2-1, I expect him to be a Jet. If the Jets are 1-2 or God forbid 0-3, I expect they trade him as a panic move because they're going to need a major shakeup at that point. Or maybe they overpay him as a panic move. I don't know, but I think it ends one way or another after that Thursday night game against the Patriots, the home opener in a week from now. So that's, I still don't believe when I see these things. It's like, oh, I guess they're going to have to trade him. That's what people are saying. I don't always believe it because Joe Douglas has done a pretty good job of moving in silence throughout his time here. But when it comes to negative stories in the Jets, it's kind of hard to ignore them. All right, I do have Bilal's prediction. So I'm going to take a quick break, come back, and give you our predictions for the game. So the first thing is that Woody Johnson put out the uniform combo, and I'm wearing the Kelly green in honor. You see, I love Jets. It's cool from where is it? Yeah, there it is. From Homage, the company. They're awesome. They make super cool stuff. And with the new Jets, this is from last year, but with the new Jets logo, they made even cooler stuff. So if you want to go check them out, they should be sponsoring this show, by the way. But in the meantime, they're going to be wearing the Kelly green uniform combo for the first time on Sunday in Tennessee. The green tops with the white bottoms. So Woody Johnson loves putting that stuff out. That's probably his best contribution to the Jets team, is putting that stuff out. So congrats. We have the uniform combo for Sunday, as the Titans are doing a whiteout their first week at home. So that's what's going on there. And that's why the Jets are wearing the green. Now, my X factors for the game. Last week I gave you X factors, and boy, could I not have been more on the money. My X factor last week was was Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald. Those were my X factors last week. Now I could give them again this week because we need them to get home and rush the quarterback again this week. They graded out as the two worst players on the field, and the Jets got their asses kicked. So my X factor that I gave you for the game actually worked out perfectly. I said if they play great, the Jets will be great. They played awful, and the Jets got their asses kicked. So again, I think it's in their hands, because if the Jets can't get pressure, the Jets can't stop the run, it's going to be another long day. Will Levis is a bad quarterback. I get it. If you get in his face, if he gets nervous, he's going to make some mistakes. But if he has all day long, he's still an NFL quarterback. If he has all day long to sit back there and throw and ever has to worry about anything, it's going to be a problem for the Jets. But I can't use the exact same X factor as last week, even though I could. I'm going to go with Quincy and CJ this time. Quincy Williams and CJ Mosley. Early in the game, Quincy Williams looked like he was flying around. CJ got hurt early in the game, and then it looked like they disappeared for the rest of the game. I need them. Did you see Fred Warner? He's one guy flying all over the field and coming with force. I need them to wake up this defense. They can lead the defense. You know that the leading tacklers, all the leading tacklers for the Jets were in their secondary, were safeties and corners. You know why? Because they were not getting tackles and stops at the first and second level. We need CJ and we need Quincy Williams to be flying all over the field and lead this defense. Even if you don't get pressure on the quarterback, even if he's got all day, even if the run game and the run stopping schemes up front are not working, still get there. Be fast. Be instinctive. Play hard. Tackle hard. When we talk about physical football, those guys will lead the way when it comes to physical football. The two linebackers who were all pro linebackers last year, it's time for them to show why and do it again. So my X factors in this game are Quincy Williams and CJ Mosley, leaders, captains, and obviously the leaders of that defense. My touchdown scorer, I'm going to ride with Breece Hall again. He scored easily last time. By the way, I messed up because I had it in my bet slip to bet Breece Hall anytime touchdown. But then what happened was I saw, there's a boost. If I wait till it's in game, I could get a boost. So I was like, of course. I got greedy. He was plus money anyway. I waited for the boost, and then I forgot to bet it by the time the game started. And of course, he scored their first touchdown. So I'm pretty mad about it. I look back at my bet slip, and I was like, it's sitting there, and I hadn't bet it. And he scored, of course. But I'm going to ride with him again. Maybe I'll bet it. Maybe I won't. But if I had to bet on any time touchdown score, I'm going to go with Breece. Again, I still think the offense is going to figure it out. But this is the first time he's gotten a handle. I think the last couple of years, he's only had one handoff inside the 5-yard line. In week one, he had one already in the first game. Handoff inside the 5-yard line. I think they'll get down there. This is what good offenses do. Slow, long, methodical drives where they drive down the field and then hand it off, and the running back finishes it off. So I like Breece Hall to score again in this game. And my final score prediction, so far right now, the way it looks is the Jets are favored on the road, -3.5, and the over-under is 41.5. I like the under, and I like Tennessee. I told you going into last week that I think the Jets are going to start 0-2. I told you this before the season started. I told you last week that I think this is a real tough situation. I think Will Levis being home, I think there's so many different combinations that could lead to this being a tough game for the Jets. The homecoming for Tennessee, their head coach having his first start. I think the way they lost the game after leading by 17 against Chicago, the way they lost that game late, I think they're going to be hungry to come back, just like the Jets are hungry. But that's the other side of it. After the way the Jets lost on Sunday or Monday Night Football, I think the Jets are going to come out with a fire. They have to come out with a fire. And so I think the loss actually leads to win. If they had lost a close game, this is what I talked about. If they had lost a close game on Monday Night Football, I think they would lose this game. But the way they got their asses handed to them in San Francisco, that they had to swallow that humble pie. I think now they have to come out and prove themselves again. They're going to come out with a fire and energy that we haven't seen yet from this Jets team. And I think the Jets ultimately, that leads them to a win. And I think the Jets do win on Sunday, but I think it's going to be ugly. It's going to be close. It's going to be tight, tough physical game, which is exactly what the Jets need. They need to show that they can win that type of game. They can be tough in the trenches, be physical. I have the Jets winning 17-15. Bilal is really low on the Titans. He thinks Will Levis is not that good. He sent me some stats from Sauce Gardner, where I saw this going back. He's given up like barely any catches in the last 9 games, 5 catches or something like that. He is unbelievable. We get it. Sauce is awesome. Still don't know why he was off the field for a bunch of plays. Bilal has the Jets winning 27-6. So I have it at 17-15. So I have the Tennessee Titans covering the number, and I have the under hitting. Bilal has the under hitting as well, but he has the Jets putting up 27 points and winning 27-6. I might look at some of the alternate, team totals and stuff like that, see where I can get some juice. But and by the way, this is how I see this game going. This is classic. I think the Jets put up a touchdown early, and then it's a couple field goals back and forth. And then it is exactly what happens. This is typical Jets. They're up 14, let's say 14-9. Tennessee has 3 field goals at this point. It's 14-9. And they score a touchdown, Tennessee, to make it 15-14 late in the game. They go for 2 to try and make it a 3-point game, to try and go up by the field goal. The Jets lock in. They snatch it away from them. They don't get the 2-point conversion, so they're stuck at 15 after 3 field goals and a late touchdown, because it's typical Jets, and the Jets drive down the field and win it with a game-winning field goal. That's how I see this game going. Dirty, sloppy, and at the end, you got your ass cheeks quenched and tight, because the Jets give up a late touchdown. They get the extra. They deny the 2-point conversion, though. They lead, or they trail by 1, go down the field. Rodgers leads them to a game-winning field goal by Greg Zuerlein, but you're going to be with your ass cheeks clenched for 3 hours. Jets win 17-15. That's my final score. Until next time, like, subscribe, share the podcast. I appreciate you all for listening. This is the Believe in Jets podcast. See ya.